go. We have a couple people coming. Hello, hello. So if you guys are able to see and hear us, can you drop where you come from and where you like what city are you come from, everyone? We are in Philadelphia. The weather is 96 degrees. It's damn hot here, so that's why I'm wearing my Hawaiian shirt actually. Okay, so we have 34 right now. Okay, hi Hannah from Philadelphia. City, okay. Oh, hi Ben. You're the hi Lauren from Philly. 38, 47, that's great. Hi Mark, how are you? Oregon, hi Ian. That's great. How's the weather in Oregon right now? Let me check. I guess it's really nice. It's post-wedding. Tucson. All right. Oh, 106. Aloha. Okay. Hi.
Oh, 106.
Hi, Steph. Softly GT. Awesome.
DC.
Yes.
Christine, are you from DC?
I lived in Petworth for about 9 years.
Okay.
Cool.
Hi, Kelly from Jersey.
Did you spend time there too?
I was close to school there. I went to school in Maryland, but I know like friends. Okay. Cool.
Also, Ian just respond. Okay, thank you for hearing my thoughts. It's 85 degrees right now in Oregon, after all, so that sounds great compared to here.
Just want to say hey to Jen Rovner. Hi, Jen. See you in the panels.
Okay, so we gonna give like 3 more minutes or 2 more minutes for everyone to settle in, and then we can start the program. So keep saying where you come from, people. Also, if you want to screenshot and share something on Twitter, Instagram, we are really gonna love it. So please tag us on PhillyCHI_UX for Instagram and PhillyCHI on Twitter. So yeah, to make sure that we have the content. Ooh, hi Hillary from California, Santa Cruz. All right. We have right now we have 61 attendees. Just wait a little bit more. Hi Josh. Oh, Stephen. Hi, what's up, man? That's my man over there. Oh, he sent a cute heart. Oh, so cute. Okay. Let me start to. Hi, Clark from Beckley. That's awesome. Let me start to share my screen. Can you see it, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you see the Q&A hanging on the corner?
No.
Okay, that's great.
Nope.
Oh, okay. And can you see my beautiful face?
We can.
How's about my hair? Okay. Let me start it. So hi everyone. This is Chong from PhillyCHI. Now it's 6:34 p.m. from Philadelphia. I'm Chong. I'm the PhillyCHI chair of 2020. Welcome everyone for this awesome event. I'm really excited we are all really excited for this event. So this event called Amplifying Black UX Voices. We typically do in-person event in Philadelphia, but then tonight we're gonna have people across the country, across the globe to join us. So which is really exciting. PhillyCHI offers events throughout the year to foster exposure and connection that enriches our work, our network, and our lives. So we acknowledge that our platform also provides an opportunities for to amplify underrepresented voices, so we can help combat the lack of diversity in UX field. So tonight we invite you to our inspiring evening as we hear from 3 talented UX colleagues, Jené, Tony, and Reggie, who will share the stories, their recent projects, and as well challenges and successes. Further on, Lorraine or Treasurer will talk more about the future event, but then just a little bit sneak peek. We're gonna in August we're gonna keep doing this initiative. So we're gonna use our social media platform, so Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter to keep amplifying the work of Black UXers. Also, for further future announcement, you can follow us on Twitter and on Instagram with PhillyCHI_UX. Okay. And then again, so we want to welcome you to a PhillyCHI event. I'm gonna hand over to Ben, or brand and content strategist, to tell a little bit about PhillyCHI and what tonight's events look like.
Thanks, Chong. Hi, everyone. I'm Ben. Happy to welcome back our previous attendees and also anyone who might be new to PhillyCHI. And for those of you who might not be familiar, our group aims to connect the local UX community by organizing educational and networking events on about a monthly basis. We are the local chapter of the Association for Computing Machinery's special interest group on human-computer interaction. And PhillyCHI has been organizing UX meetup style events in Philly for about 15 years. Lately, these have all been virtual, of course. In May, we heard from some pros at Abstract about how to lead a remote design team. And in April, we had a panel. This was actually our very first virtual event. And it was on how to be a successful UX practitioner in 2020. All right, that's us. Can you go to the next slide, John? Okay, so tonight we're very excited to hear from 3 colleagues, Jené, Tony, and Reggie. Each of them will be speaking for about 15 minutes, followed by a 5-minute Q&A. And be sure to stick around till the end of the event, where we will be raffling off 3 books courtesy of Rosenfeld Media. So stick around so that you can claim your prize. All right, who's next?
I am. Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Colon. I am the social media strategist for PhillyCHI. And we just wanted to share some information and ground rules for today's session. So first, attendees are muted by default. Please use chat for discussions and Q&A to post questions for the presenters. Second, questions for our presenters will be fielded through the Q&A feature. Number 3, if you post a question, we will try to unmute you to ask the question yourself, so be prepared to speak. If you prefer not to speak, start your question with anonymous, and Christine will read your question aloud. 4, we have limited time and lots of participants joining us, so please be respectful and considerate of the speakers and one another. 5, if you encounter issues during the webinar, send direct messages to the host through the chat feature. And lastly, this event will be recorded, and sorry, the chat just popped up right in front of the thing I'm reading. This event will be recorded and shared online, so please keep this in mind if you are unmuted. Next slide, please, John. Thank you. Next, just wanted to shout out our 2020 annual sponsors, Think Company, Slalom, Guru, Vanguard, Harrisburg University's Human-Centered Interaction Design School, the College of Computing and Informatics at Drexel University, and Rosenfeld Media. And I'll hand it over to Christine.
Thanks, Michelle and Chung. Hi, I'm Christine Cuniff, and I'm the PhillyCHI Vice Chair, and I will be your moderator this evening as well. As we've been going through our introduction, you've met a few of us already, but we wanted to take a second to introduce ourselves so that you might recognize us as we pop up throughout the evening. The PhillyCHI board changes every year, and we are your 2020 board. We have Chung, who is our chair. I am your vice chair. Daryl is our secretary. She's not with us tonight. Lorraine is our treasurer. Michelle is our social media strategist. And Ben is our content and brand strategist. Please reach out to us if you're interested in joining the board in 2021. We typically open applications for these near the end of the year, but we're happy to field and answer questions anytime. If you'd like to get involved before then, please reach out to learn about volunteer opportunities with us. As a reminder, we're a local chapter, so we are looking for Philadelphia-based inquiries. Also, if you'd like to know more about our future events, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at PhillyCHI_UX and Twitter at PhillyCHI. We want to remind everyone that our code of conduct applies to all of our in-person and virtual events. PhillyCHI is committed to creating a safe and positive environment for professionals to gather, converse, and explore interests in user experience design. If you witness any unacceptable behavior, please notify a board member, one of us, by messaging any one of us in the chat tonight, or contact us at phillychi@gmail.com. Right, I'm gonna hand things off to Lorraine.
Hey everyone, my name is Lorraine and I'm the treasurer of PhillyCHI. I wanted to give you a heads up that we have some great upcoming events in both August and September. So in August, we're going to continue amplifying Black UX voices through our social media. If you have any work that you'd like to share, please do that. You can email us at phillychi@gmail.com or reach out to us via social. And then in September, we're going to have our annual show and tell event where we partner with Think Company, and we're inviting UXers to share their work in that event. We're going to open up submissions later this week, so keep your eyes open for that email if you're interested. And then we would like to take a couple of minutes before we jump into presentations to do what we call job time. So we use this as a networking opportunity to help those who are looking for jobs connect with those who are hiring and vice versa. So at this time, if you are an individual who is looking for a job, and if you'd like to share a little bit about who you are and what you're looking for, you can do that at this time in the chat. And if your company is hiring, you can also share that in the chat function. You can post, if you want, you can post a link to your LinkedIn or a post to the job description. Okay. Christine, I think we can just leave that up for a little bit so that people can post through there.
Are we having audio issues? I'm seeing Ashanta. Oh, nope. Sorry, Ashanta.
Ashanta, maybe try restarting or quitting and coming back into the Zoom. Cool, and it looks like we do have a link in the chat for anybody interested from Eastern Standard.
Awesome, thanks Anna for sharing that.
Sweet.
Cool.
Great. Shall we move to the next slide?
Okay, so then at the end of our event, stay tuned. As mentioned, we've got 3 great books that we're going to raffle off to 3 different winners. All right, and I'll hand things back over.
Awesome. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We're really excited for these presentations. We're going to get started in a minute, but I just wanted to introduce tonight's presenters. First, we have Jené Adams, and we have Tony Moaton, and then we have Reggie Hall Jr. So prepare for some awesome talks. Jené, if you're ready, I'm going to hand it off to you.
I'm ready.
Great.
Thanks, Christina. Let me see if I can share my screen. Can everyone see?
Yes.
Okay, great, awesome. PhillyCHI, thank you again for allowing me to come today to speak. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Jené Adams. I am currently a graphic designer at the Philadelphia Inquirer. I'm from South Jersey. I've been at the Philadelphia Inquirer for almost 2 years now, and I do a lot of designing with the marketing team as well as the advertising team. We work with social media, events team, and then sometimes product. So a lot of the work that I do, funny, I'm actually at a newspaper company, but the majority of my work is actually digital. So I work a lot with, user testing for emails and different things for digital platforms and things of that nature. So it's kind of cool to see. I get a little bit of insight into the print world and also the digital world as well. So it's cool to just be able to learn, have multiple platforms that I'm always working in. And it's also a challenge because I have to see how I make the branding across all platforms look the way they're supposed to, and print well for print media, and then look well for digital as well. So this year, last year actually, 2019, I had a chance to work on the Diversity and Inclusion Awards Gala that the Inquirer had hosted. It was the first time we did this event, and I was challenged to come up with a design system for the event. So the event consisted of print advertisements, digital advertisements, emails that we sent out about the event, and also a microsite. So just a little background, the Diversity Inclusion Awards was an event honoring companies and individuals who advocate for diversity and inclusion in their workplaces, and also individuals who have done the same. So a lot of my work, I love doing work around diversity, and being an African American woman, this was something that I was excited to work on. So when I got the brief to do this, I started thinking about how I wanted the awards to look, and I wanted it to be more of like a formal event. So the design system, I wanted to create something that looked formal with the invitation. The logo was already created by one of my other teammates, so I was tasked with coming up with the ideas behind the branding. So as you can see here in my first slide, I have a lot of prints that I pulled from, and I was playing with different patterns, and I started to create something that looked more like an invitation. So my first task was to come up with a print assets. So working at the Inquirer, the first things that we have to actually execute is the print advertisements, since those are always running first for any event that we do. So here you can see 2 advertisements that I've done, and the prints are actually, the colors changed a lot from the digital assets that I created, because I had to make sure that the prints work well with how we print things for newspaper. And let me tell you, gradient does not look really good. So I had to come up with an idea of how I can, make it look well for print. So I toned it down with the idea of like how I presented the prints here. So then moving to RGB, I had a little more room to explore with how I wanted the designs to be. Next slide. So here you can see the first task that I have to do is when I'm starting for the microsite, after I finish the prints, moving over to the microsite, coming up with how I want the site to look. So the program that we use to build these microsites is Ceros. And if you're not familiar, Ceros is a platform where you can build prototypes, things like, you know, websites, mobile sites, and things of that nature, and coming up with a system to do so. So when I first started, we were able to design in the prototyping website Ceros, and then our product team actually moves and codes the website and actually makes it a live website for us. So here you can see we usually get a brief from our marketing and our events team of how they would like us to outline the event. They give us an outline of the event, and then I am tasked to organize the event and seeing how I can come up with a system to make it easy for users to navigate through in a short amount of time. And usually for these events, it's like a quick turnaround time, so we don't have a lot of time to like really spend a lot of time building the website. It's usually one microsite, one page for each website. So this particular microsite is broken up into 6 categories: the about page, the about section, keynote speaker, winners, agenda, and tickets, and sponsors. So as you can see here is just a little, sorry, going back, a little outline of the site itself. And this continuation of that. And so when I was building this, I just really wanted this to be like easy for users to navigate through. And I'm going to show you on my next slide, like more of the wireframing of it. So here, as you can see, it's just a rough outline of what I created, but here at the top, there's like the top header of like what the event's about, a little blurb about what the event's about, and then the top navigation, of course, and then listed here are like the speakers that we have listed for the event, a winner section, the agenda for the event, and then several buttons for the user to actually register for the event. Here's just some other inspiration that I usually pull from past creatives that we've done for my team for different events that the Inquirer's had. As you can see, it's just more of like the styling of the headers and really bringing that in, especially the Industry Icon Awards, which was a previous event, you know, playing off of that texture and different things like that. Here we just have a style guide of my all of the things I've used in this microsite. So here are the fonts that I've used, the subheader, font treatments that I decided to use, and just continuing with that gradient effect. I did overlays, as you can see here, for the speakers as a way to kind of hide information, but then also reveal it with a hover. Color schemes and patterns. And then these are some of the desktop layouts. Here you can see some of the hovers that I've done with the speakers. And here we can see the winner section. This was probably the most challenging with this awards because the winners list, there were a lot of categories. So I had to figure out a way to organize the information. So I ended up deciding to have it as a list, and then show the names when a person clicks on each tab, and then present the awards list that way. Then we have the bottom section, the agendas. So this was really cool. Like some of the features that are in Ceros, you can use different overlays and shadowing to make things come forward. And my decision to use a gradient in this as well is to give the design more depth and feel more three-dimensional from going to print and then moving to digital. I wanted it to have more something extra to it. So here we can see that I moved to mobile, and in the Ceros program, we actually, the template is already built. So when I'm moving to mobile, the template's already made where Ceros already has your design transferred to mobile. So it's just a matter of adjusting. And here's where we have to do a lot of user testing on our phones. Several members on my team were always testing to make sure things looked correct, testing the size of the fonts, testing the header and all of the buttons to make sure everything can work correctly and transfers well from desktop to a mobile phone device. And these are just a few other of the pages here. I'm gonna have questions. Is this okay to open up for questions, or would you guys also like to see the site itself?
Looks like some folks want to see the site.
Okay. Let me see if I can. Is it uploading? Okay, here we go. You can kind of see like the
Oh, Jené, I think you have to either drag it over or reshare that screen wherever it is.
Okay, let me see. I'm gonna stop share for a minute and then. Can everyone see this website?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna do a quick walkthrough of the website itself. So as you can see here up top, we have the navigation, the hovers. And then also cool thing about the Ceros program that we use, you can do different features to make things animate and animate on or interact. So that's like another feature that I like about this program. Here I have some of the hover features. So it's really good to build things first. We do this a lot, even when we're testing something out, to make sure a website can work first before we actually make it set to live. We're able to send the link to our phones before the website actually gets published to live. So that's one cool thing, because we're always going back, testing on our desktop and our phones to make sure things will work correctly.
Jené, I'm seeing some questions in the chat about the application used for prototyping. Was Ceros the only one you mentioned?
Ceros is the only one that I mentioned for this one. We do use other programs as well, but not for prototyping. We use other digital programs, but this is the main one we use for like microsites like this.
How do you spell that, Jené?
Ceros, C-E-R-O-S.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep. So yeah, this is pretty much the site. Again, this is like a one-page site. So usually for applications like this, usually I have to build it really quickly. So I'm always thinking about like, how can I apply UX, designs and strategies to these designs while also moving in a short time frame. So yeah, was there anything else? Any other questions?
We do have some questions coming in through the chat. I was going to give you to 7:05, but it sounds like we're ready to keep going.
Sure.
So the next question is, can you explain more in detail how you did successful user testing with short turnaround times?
Successful user testing. I would say more with I have a team that usually helps like test these sort of websites. So even with me building it, everyone on my team has to approve and make sure everything's working correctly before we move on to the next phase, which is like publishing and making this a live website. And then going back to the UX, like really making sure I've thought out different things before I actually make this into a website. So I'm not spending so much time like in the program, like making sure I have enough background in what I'm doing before I start building this website.
Awesome. So a question from Kyrie. Kyrie, would you like to call this question out? Would you like to speak publicly? All right, Kyrie, if you'd like to ask your question, you are permitted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Hello, my question was, you said that you have to consider print and digital for a lot of your design work. I wanted to know if there were any trade-offs you had to make for this particular project because of that.
Yeah, I would say, so your question, you were saying like any trade-offs going from print to digital? Was that your question?
I think that was her question.
Okay,
I
okay.
think we lost her there.
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing would be, like I mentioned earlier, moving from print to digital. A lot of the design, as far as like the color and the way I've applied things, like as far as the shadow, get sometimes changed a lot from moving from print to digital because we can't have, like, of course, all the overlays, printing on a newsprint type of printer. So a lot of the design is usually flatter in print designs, and then digital we have more space to like sort of build and apply shadows and more features like that.
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jené, this question is from JT Kobel. Find that. JT, you've been unmuted. Would you like to ask your question out loud?
Oh, wow, I've been unmuted. Hello. Yeah, I'd love to, hi. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you took this work from the mock-ups that you showed us into production, into development, how you worked with your developers or what your process at the Inquirer is for building work that you test.
Sure. So a lot of times we actually don't get to see like the developing stages of things. We're more of like on the user interface side, like developing. We do have to send tests, and they will give feedback if something isn't working correctly. So that's one thing. We're more of like the building side, you know, the designing part of it. And then afterwards, after we have published, we send them the code, our product team the code, and then they actually build it. And we're able to see the site like before it goes live, and they will give us like any feedback if there's something missing or something wrong with the website itself. And then also, if something is like going wrong with the website or there needs to be a quick change, we're able to update in Ceros and then hit publish again, and then it will actually automatically update the live website. Did that answer your question?
I didn't realize I was. It does, yeah. I didn't
Okay.
realize I was still muted. Yeah, thank you. That's really good to hear. I haven't worked with Ceros, so it's interesting to explore it as a tool for this type of work.
All right. All right, our next question is from Alyssa. Alyssa, I'm going to unmute you. Oh.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I was just wondering if there's any tools that you use either built into the software you're using or otherwise to help you test with accessibility of the design for the website?
Yeah, like any other tools that we use. Not that I can think of off the top of my head. We do use, like, of course, like we can test all of our other software programs like, you know, Adobe Suite and things like that. But as far as like the actual testing, we don't use anything. But that's a good question. Like, I would be interested in seeing if there's any other program that works with Ceros, but not that I know of, actually.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious.
Yeah.
All right, we have an anonymous question next. Were you previously familiar with Ceros before this project? What was the process like, organic or otherwise, for you to learn the tool and its capabilities? Were you allowed time on the job to learn it, or did you have to find time on your own to understand?
That's a good question. So actually, Ceros, this wasn't my first time using the program for this particular project. I've done several projects before this one. So when I got to this one, I was more familiar with how the program worked. But starting this position, I did have to learn Ceros. And I did get a little training window to learn the program. And then more of it was like, you know, learning on my own and just figuring out, kind of learning as I go along. So it was cool to see. Like, Ceros is actually pretty intuitive, so you can learn it pretty quickly, I would say. So when I first started, like, it was just a big learning leap to figure out how things work. But once I started playing around and designing more, I was getting the hang of it.
Awesome. And then we have about 2 minutes. What has been your favorite project, Jené?
That's a good question. Just in general for like microsites or just anything at the Inquirer.
Follow your heart.
Cool. Of course, this one, I would say I really enjoyed this. Like I said before, this was the first time we were doing an event like this. So from start to finish, this was like sort of my project that I took over, and I was able to really execute it in a way that I felt worked for this particular event. So it was cool to see the development of it. We work on a lot of other projects as far as emails as well, and it's cool to see. I also like to animate, so being able to use programs like this to animate and make things move is also cool for me.
Awesome. All right. Those are all of our Jené specific questions. This site looks awesome. Your work is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today.
No problem. Thank you for allowing me to share. Okay, now I can stop sharing. Literally.
Yes.
Let me find the button. Give me 1 second. Bear with me. Okay, here we go.
Definitely check out the chat. Get your kudos. People are loving it. Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right, next up, we have Tony. Tony, are you ready?
So, am I audible?
You are audible.
Great.
Right.
So much again, Jené, for your presentation. I really appreciated being able to hear your work. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Woo-woo.
Thank you, Tony.
All right, let's press play. So, once again, my name is Tony Moaton, and so my presentation is entitled Yes and, The Joys of Process over Product. And so I am showing you the homepage of the app that I am designing entitled Yes and, which is supposed to basically be an artistic experience for artists and non-artists alike to develop their creative and improvisational skills. You'll see in the bottom under my things, I'll include like image descriptions. I don't actually use the word image description, but just as a practice of remembering to try to think about alt text and just like how to also write captions and things like that for people with visual disabilities. So I want to start with a quote by Jacques Lecoq, who was a famous French clown and theater maker and theater teacher. So he says, improvisation sometimes stirs up things that are very intimate, but they belong to the person who performs them. Just the idea of being able to just go with the flow, do something on a whim, that might mean something for you, and that's only for you. That's something that's extremely special. And I'll talk a little bit more about why I'm bringing that up and how important he is to the work I'm trying to do as a UX designer. But first, let's set the scene. So this is a picture of me as a clown. I am originally from Oak Park, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. And I went to Philly. I'm in Philly right now because I was originally going to the University of the Arts for grad school as part of the Device Performance program at the Pig Iron School of Advanced Performance Training. So I was originally attempting to get my MFA there. But before that, I worked as a journalist and as a music producer for an NPR affiliate station in Connecticut. And I've also spent time working at different foundations and nonprofits and startups, and a brief little session as an Uber Eats delivery guy on my bike. It did not go well, but we did the best we could. And so I bring up all those different experiences because it allowed me to start thinking about what it means to like think about an audience, what it means to think about users and consumers. And so even though at those times I didn't know anything about UX, I realized I was starting to lay that groundwork so that way I can start thinking about it. And so the summer going into my second year of grad school, I was doing the dance that a lot of people do in the academy where they're trying to figure out how they're going to get money over the summer before they get their next round of like scholarship money. And through a fellowship I was a part of in undergrad, the Mellon Mays Fellowship, I was able to actually get an internship at Princeton University. And so it was called the Museum Voices Internship. And so it was supposed to be to allow underrepresented groups to get a taste of working in museums, learning about museum studies. And in this case, specifically, I was working at the Princeton Art Museum. So I was in an IT communications role, and that was when I discovered UX. And I was very, very fortunate that because of all the resources that Princeton has, I was able to take classes at their UX lab. I worked in their lab. Part of my job was to help them redesign the website because pre-COVID, they were planning on closing down the museum anyway, and they had to figure out how to make sure that students, professors, and the general public could access all of the things that the museum had to offer. So that meant conducting usability tests. That meant creating personas, taking classes through lynda.com, sitting in with the design team to see how the process worked. And I fell in love with it. It was so amazing to me because I thought I finally found something that I could be really passionate about, and something that I also realized could tie in very much with my artistic journey. I consider myself to be an artist and a musician, a writer, and all of that is also focused on what is the experience your user, your audience is having. But part of what I found to be an issue was that I feel like in the theater realm, if we're not really thinking about users in the way that I think UX and UI folk do, it's very easy to get caught up with ego and think about like, my idea has to be right. This is what we need to do. I want to be the star. And it becomes less about, well, what is the audience experiencing? What is the general sort of feeling that a person gets from being a part of this experience? So when I came back to school, I found myself at this crossroads because I just had this UX experience. I loved it so much, and I was just really frustrated with my program. I realized that I was also at that point starting to figure out and develop the problem space that would help me start to figure out the app I was eventually going to create. We'll get there in a second. But what I was thinking through was being in grad school and hearing from other people who have been to grad school for art or some sort of art making, theater making process, was that it was a lot of needing to be vulnerable and then potentially getting a lot of like bad feedback. It was potentially having to work with people that don't get you, that you might not ever want to work with again, but that is the norm. It was having to constantly churn out work because that's supposed to be how you get better as an artist, is to make things that you might not necessarily enjoy. And in that process, be very vulnerable, get down to the roots of the issues, and potentially get yelled at, potentially get hurt, potentially get feedback that isn't really useful. And for me, I feel that as a queer Black person that's been in a lot of spaces where my full self isn't always accepted, I've learned to compartmentalize, and I've learned to be in the space where I can sort of take this feedback, this works for me here, I can work with this person in this way. And I also recognize that not everyone can do that, wants to do that, and they found themselves emotionally distraught and sometimes not even wanting to make art anymore. They were so angry at the experience that they move on and they decide, I never want that again. I got to do something completely different. It was really traumatic for me. And so that helped me start to develop, I think, the problem space for the app I was starting to design. So the reason why I was able to get there was because I decided to enroll in the Springboard program to do UX and UI design, because I decided that that was a career path that I wanted to go in. And so for my capstone, I decided to think through what would be this project that sort of spoke to a lot of the issues I was thinking about in the sort of theater space, grad school space, and art space in general. So after I started thinking about the problem space, thinking about some of the issues that I was sort of reflecting on in my experience being in this grad school program, I then had to start doing the research on the topics that I was most interested in. And so that included creativity and improvisation. And I have a lot of experience with improvisation, as that was a class that I had to take every day. And I grew up as an artist, a musician, a theater maker. So I always had to improvise. And so doing the research to think about what exactly were the benefits of being able to improvise, that included mental flexibility, that included learning to go with the flow and not get so hung up on all of the tiniest details. And so those are things that I felt personally have benefited my life, and things that I've witnessed have benefited a lot of people who have been working on being able to improvise, what exactly it even means to go with the flow, to think outside the box, to start making connections with different things that seem disparate, but you found a connection somehow. So then once I started doing that research, I eventually started doing user interviews. I was very fortunate as I was starting to do user interviews during the start of our quarantine. And so it wouldn't have been as easy for me to go out in the ways that I might have wanted to. But fortunately, because I had my Springboard community and because I live with 9 people in my house, I was able to actually have a lot of people to like interview who were artists and who weren't artists. And that was very important to me because while I was coming from a background where I went to graduate school for art and I interviewed people who also went to grad school for art but may not be making art, I was also interested in developing an app that was an experience for people who had no experience with art, who would never call themselves an artist, who just wanted to like dip their toe in the water and see what it's like to just create. So after doing these user interviews and using Miro to create my empathy maps, I also started creating these personas. So I have these 2 characters I created. I used Animaker to create these characters. I used that previously for the church band I'm in to make music videos, so I wanted to try this here. And so I sort of personified it for 2 people. I have Ibtihaj, and Ibtihaj works in arts administration. She's a married mother of 2. She just doesn't have time to make art. She used to do art, but she just doesn't have the time anymore. She doesn't have the resources or the space. And especially right now, because of COVID, it's like, what is she gonna do? She just wants to unwind and de-stress. And so hopefully she would wanna use an app like the one I'm designing, Yes And, in order to have something that is short and sweet, not too laborious, and that maybe she could even do it for kids to allow her to just be creative in some way and just make things that might not be long lasting. And then on the other side of the coin, I have Xander. They're a genderqueer Latinx individual who like doesn't really know that much about like art in that formal sense, but they like aesthetics. They're really interested in like writing, or they're really interested in just like music in a sense, like they like being someone that witnesses things. And so they just want to know like what this is because they have their educational background wouldn't allow for them to go to grad school to do an art program. But that doesn't mean that they don't want to make art or eventually learn about it. And so breaking it down for these personas, I was eventually able to create wireframes using Figma. And I am currently in the stage where I finished my high fidelity mockups, and now I'm going to start doing usability testing through what I designed on InVision. And so I'm just really excited to sort of start to iterate the visual language that I'm creating and just figure out how to make the UI more accessible. So I think when I think about the how might we's of like what I want to do with this app, I want to think about how might we teach users how to think about art. I want to think about how can we connect users to each other? How can we encourage users to make artistic risks? And how might we provide timely and encouraging feedback? Because to go back to the problem space that I was developing that started this all, I recognized that not everyone was getting exactly what they wanted out of being in a graduate school program. And part of it was also recognizing, to sort of quote some of the research I've also been doing, a book I really like is Lower Ed by Tressie McMillan Cottom, and thinking a lot about this sort of like getting all these credentials, like a lot of that being the root of like why we're in a lot of these like art programs, grad programs. We need the MFA, we need the certificate. That's the only way we can get a job. That's the only way we can teach. And being really realistic about it, I found myself in that space as well. As much as I wanted to just be in an art program to just learn about art, wow, I also recognized that there are a lot of people who really wanted the letters next to their name so that way they can have security, because it might not always pay to do art. However, what is the world in which we sort of start to step back from that potential elitism and actually think more about just creating in general? And so when I think about the inspirations for how I was trying to design my app, I use Jacques Lecoq. I take a lot from his teachings and the pedagogy that I was trained in as examples of what I would want to do for developing sort of tasks for the app. So one of the things that's like a simple step that you could take if you choose a random prompt on my app is turn something into a puppet and then take it on a journey and just record that and just think through the process. Very simple. Another inspiration is the Book of Dunas. I bought this at like a thrift shop and I was reading it, and it was something that was supposed to help combat boredom in the digital age. So there's all sorts of activities such as just go on a walk around the block and count how many steps you see, or just get on a bus and go somewhere and then get off the bus and walk back home. So there are certain things that I want to problematize with both of these two inspirations in terms of recognizing that because of this moment, we are more attached to our phones and to our laptops and to our screens than ever. And instead of sort of positioning it as, don't do anything with it, these are bad things, you shouldn't be on it anymore, thinking more about how is this a potential tool to be more creative. And so in that same vein, I'm also inspired by apps like Instagram and TikTok. That has been a huge inspiration for the visual language I've been trying to create. The thing is that I will critique with apps like Instagram and TikTok is that they're very product oriented. And so a lot of it is about following trends, potentially going viral, trying to get as many likes as possible, being attached to that sort of situation. And the nature of what I want to do in this app is to try to figure out how to make process enjoyable. So you have the option whenever you record something on Yes And to share it with friends, to share it on your social media, because you should have that option. But at the same time, the focus is more on what does it mean to try to create? Like, what are the questions about trying to even make a puppet? What is a puppet? Like allowing yourself to be in that space where it's not super taxing or time consuming, but it's just something that's like very simple. And a big inspiration for that is an app called This Is Sand. I really love that app. I think it might actually die out because it uses Flash, and that will stop in December 2020. But all you do is just pour sand on a screen. And I love it so much. It's very soothing, have the sound on, you can hear the sand running. I'm like, oh, this is really nice. I don't see myself eventually becoming this amazing visual artist, but I can see people who have made such amazing pieces of art through This Is Sand. And I'm not there to compete with them. I'm there because it's a relaxing activity, and it's something that allows me to look at colors and look at patterns and think about like, and using technology to explore those things. And so as I continue to work through, I think that like one of the things that I really hope to try to work on, a big takeaway, is figuring out how instead to like leave this idea of being so product driven behind, even though you can create a product, and just reflect more on what process will mean for a person, how they develop themselves potentially as an artist, and more importantly, as a human. And so, let's see. I just want to give acknowledgement and just give my thanks. My mentor from the Springboard program, Seth, is here. I want to thank PhillyCHI for giving me this opportunity to have this talk. The Butter Barrel is the name of my house of 9 people, and so I have to give acknowledgement to them because at least I have a place to stay. And I'm just thankful for all of you for listening to my talk. So I will potentially stop sharing. Weird mouse issue.
Tony, we have some questions for you. We're at 7:28, so we just have a few minutes to answer. I want to confirm that Animaker was the program that you used for user personas. Is that true? Awesome. One of our listeners got that, so I'm gonna skip that one. And then a question from Stephanie Guzman. Stephanie, I'm gonna allow you to speak, so I'm gonna unmute you.
Thanks so much. And Tony, awesome presentation. I love hearing all about the nitty-gritty of the UX process. So this was really exciting. And my question is coming from, hearing kind of mixed reviews about making user personas. So I was curious if you found any shortcomings in distilling all your user research down to just 2 people, or how was maybe the process helpful?
Yeah, One of the things that I think coming from a theater background that excited me about personas, and I recognize that there is some issues and criticism with it. For me, it's actually easy because for me, it is thinking about, I write every day. I'm always creating characters. And so I come from a place of observation and then trying to distill it into a character. So for me, a persona is just an extension of that. And I was able to already start to think, what are the two sides? Who are the two best representatives in this current moment that I'm iterating that could say, this is what I would want to do, that this is who I think my app is for. And then recognizing that I can always problematize that, I can always critique that, I can always make more personas, go back to the drawing board, erase those. Just always remembering that being in an iterative process means that this isn't set in stone forever, and there might be things I missed, and I'll go back to it.
Well, thank you so much.
Our next question is from Stephen Miller. Stephen, I'm unmuting you.
Hey, Tony, can you hear me? Oh. Sweet. Hey, thank you so much for walking us through that project. Your thought process was super interesting, and hearing some of the questions you teed up for yourself and the way you worked through the problem space, I'm curious, like during your process with this app and other projects as well, have you found any parallels between your experience like with performative improvisation and your design practice and ideation and brainstorming?
Sure. I hope I'm going to still process while I'm answering. So I have found that because this is also such a different circumstance, and I'm finding myself trying to figure out how to create this while I'm also living through it and figuring out how to be creative myself, this being my form of creativity, I feel like I go back to what exactly was my situation was in grad school, where it was me doing this every day, me having to figure out how to improvise every day, and recognizing that a lot of that was having it be for someone. So it wasn't my choice per se. I was in school for it. And so I think with the design process, even though this is for my capstone, I also recognize that this is something that I'm also deeply invested in as part of like more or less a big social justice sort of thing. It's like, what is the move to stop being so focused on making something for someone and just being able to take ownership? Because like the original quote, improvisation may reveal some secrets, but it's all for you anyway. That's just been the journey for me. Like, what are the things that sort of I found potentially harmful and that I witnessed were harmful for other people in spaces like this? Where are the gaps for other people who don't have the potential resources to do what I was able to do? And then sort of finding that middle point where it is possible to just actually enjoy just making.
Yeah, love it. Super interesting. Thank you very much.
All right, so we're a little bit over time. So I'm going to keep us moving along. Tony, awesome presentation, great work. There are still some questions in the Q&A channel. If you'd like, you can go in and type answers directly to people. Thank you. Great. Last but not least at all, we have Reggie Hall. Reggie, the stage is yours if you are ready.
Awesome, thank you. And just want to thank PhillyCHI for giving me this opportunity. Really appreciate it, and I love the theme of this event. I think it's really important. So I'm going to talk about a form redesign that was done. It was completed last October 2019. And so I know that forms are not the sexiest topic, but my hope is that by the end of this, that you think of forms maybe a little bit differently than you have before. And if not, that's okay too. So imagine this scenario. Oh. So you just found out that you're going to won a fellowship, and you're really excited, but you're also a little bit nervous because you don't speak Japanese that well. So you're there in Japan for about 3 weeks. Then you realize all of a sudden it's been 3 weeks and no one has picked up your recycling. and you want that recycling picked up. So you find out there's two options. So you can either call and speak to somebody on the phone, they'll kind of walk you through it, or you can go to a government building and fill out a form. You try the first option, it doesn't work. You're just talking to someone and they only speak in Japanese and they don't speak English. That keeps happening, so you get a little frustrated and say, oh, you know what, I'm gonna go and fill out the form. So you go downtown to downtown Tokyo to the building where you'll fill out the form. You eventually find the building, and a man says, you know, he speaks a little bit of English, but not much, just enough to tell you where the form is. So he shows you the form to fill out, and this will be able to, with this form, you'll be able to submit it, and then you'll be able to hopefully get that recycling picked up. There's only one problem, and the form is all in Japanese. So your reaction's pretty much like this. You're a little confused, you're frustrated, and you know, this is your first step in Tokyo, so that kind of is a bad foot to set the stage. Well, that experience, believe it or not, actually happened here in Philly. Philly, we have a diverse community here that speaks a lot of languages, and a lot of people who are not necessarily from here initially do come here. And that experience happens a lot. And so much so that in 2015, Philly residents passed a vote so that requiring all city departments to provide language access services. So really what that is providing translations, it's providing interpreters, both in person and over the phone. So really, that basically means that if you struggle with English, you have someone who can help you do things like pay a parking ticket, or pay your tax bill, or sign up for a library card, or you know, register for a new business. So that was the intent. And let's fast forward to 2018. The Office of Immigrant Affairs, which is a city department, they realized that even though this law had been in place for 3 years, challenges were still happening for those who struggled with English. So what they did is create this form, this language access grievance form that you see, with the intent that anyone who struggles with English and they didn't receive city services because of that language barrier, they would now have a form where they could submit a complaint, a formal complaint, and put it on record and hopefully still get those services. But what they found is that even though this form existed that they created, while it worked to some extent, there still were those who struggle with English still unable to access city services. And I'll go into a little of the why in a little bit. So that was a problem. So with that, let's enter Onyx Valley Studios. So the city decided to team up with Onyx Valley to help redesign the form. Onyx Valley Studios is a design agency based in Philadelphia, primarily for underrepresented people to learn UX and eventually enter the field. So, you know, women, people of color, people from diverse backgrounds. This is what it's for, and it's all done using real world clients. It's amazing. I really can't say enough good things about Onyx Valley. You know, in many ways it's changed my life, changed my career path, and it's just fantastic. It's funny because a friend of mine who was looking to change careers, and I'd actually mentioned, you know, look into user experience, and he found Onyx Valley Studios before me, and then recommended it to me, and he just kept saying how great it was, and so I believed him, but also he was so excited about it. I was a little bit skeptical as well, but then once I joined, I was like, oh, he's right. So it's just fantastic. And I find it funny, you know, for me, because my background is not in user experience. So I actually graduated with a journalism degree. I've worked in public relations for the city, actually, in their special events department. That department puts on the Philadelphia Marathon. That's a photo that you see on the left of me and a colleague. I've worked for nonprofits in the city. I worked for Campus Philly. They're a nonprofit that keeps local college grads here instead of having them go to like New York or DC. And so that's an event that we have on the right. And currently I work at the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Philadelphia, helping executives grow their business through special events and programming. So I've done a lot so far, but user experience and especially research is my passion. And so I'm actually looking to do that full-time. So if anyone is hiring, absolutely would love to talk after. So I just want to give you a little bit background there. But I really love UX research really because it deals with people. I think that's also why I initially got in journalism in the first place, understanding people, their stories, how they think. But what I really like about UX research is that those insights and data, you can apply them to actually help people in real life. So that's really why it's really interesting to me and why I'm excited about it. So back to the form redesign, I'll talk just about not all of this, just a few things that I think were helpful. But before I get into that, it's really important for me to say for this project, it was not just myself. I had 6 other colleagues from Onyx Valley Studios. We all worked together. Some were more designers, some were more researchers, but we worked as a team. And it was awesome to work together to have an output. So this is a rough overlay of the research and design process. And I'll just talk about a few things that personally for me, where I think I saw the most value. So you're looking at a picture of Orlando Almonte. He's the language access program manager, and he was one of the stakeholders for this form redesign. We also had a second stakeholder, her name's Sarah Hall, and at the time she was the product manager of the Office of Open Data and Digital Transformation. Those are our 2 major stakeholders, and I think that stakeholder interviews sometimes aren't appreciated enough. They kind of just sometimes some people think that's something you just check off, but actually I think done well, they can really give you a lot of insights when it comes to research. So I would personally was really excited to interview Sarah and Orlando because while they both worked for the city, they were in different departments. So I was going to get different perspectives that would add more context to the form redesign, and especially what are all the events that led up to this point, which would only help the research further. One insight that stands out in particular, and that came from the research, is initially I just thought that people who struggled with English were the target users for the form, but actually learned that a lot of times advocates of these people who struggle with English often fill out the form, sometimes even more than those who struggle with English. And advocates, I mean community organizers, social workers, immigration lawyers, who would work on the behalf of those who struggle with English. A lot of times they would fill out the form. So right there, I knew that essentially they are a target user of this form, and their input would be really important to figure out their thought process on filling out the form. Another insight that came was a constraint that came out of the stakeholder interviews, which, I mean, some of you might say, like, why don't you just print a bunch of forms in different languages? But a constraint that we learned is, well, for one reason, due to budgets, you know, it wouldn't make sense to print that many different languages with that many different copies. The other thing is language translation between certain languages, words and phrases just don't translate correctly. So it would be a much greater undertaking than simply just, you know, Google translating a bunch of languages together. So knowing those things and insights are just some things that came out of the stakeholder interviews, but it just showed just how important they were, and it was really helpful for me. Another key research aspect that I want to talk about is the walk a mile immersion exercise. And so essentially that's just walk a mile in the shoes of the person or people you think are most likely to use your product or service. This is a picture of the Municipal Services Building, and this is where the physical copy of the form was held. And in the Municipal Services Building, you can do things like pay your taxes and pay your water bill. It's a really big place. It's actually right across pretty much from City Hall downtown in Philadelphia. And so it was really important to do this exercise because even though I've been in the field for a limited time, I always try with research challenges to really put myself into the user's shoes. I think that's really important. And as much as I can do that, that's the aim. So that was the purpose of doing that. And I wanted to see, if I was if I struggled with English and someone told me, I needed to fill out this form and I showed up at the municipal services building, what would actually happen? So I can tell you that as someone who worked for the city in the past and who's a native English speaker, when I went into the municipal services building, I was lost and confused. So it was a struggle. And it really opened my eyes into the journey that someone who struggled with English would have to go through. And I actually have footage of me in the municipal services building. That's actual live footage. And it was a struggle. So I really felt empathy and I really understood where those who struggle with English might be coming from. But it was a great exercise, and my colleagues who did the same thing, we had similar experiences. And so the consensus was just getting the physical form was also difficult. And that's a research insight that came from doing this exercise that we might not have figured out another way. And I think the walk a mile immersion is really interesting exercise just because it helps you challenge assumptions. Like I had the assumption that getting a form would be easy, but going through this made me realize that there would need to be some type of training for some of the employees to learn more about the form, know about the form so that if anyone asked about it, they could direct them accordingly. And I also think this is good for just addressing potential systemic issues that might go for a user's journey. And so the third research aspect that I want to talk about is a workshop that we did. And ideally, I could just go to users and say, tell me what you want, and then just build that, and that would be it. But in my experience, that's not the best route. So it was really important to have people who were actually be filling out the form to see them do that in person. And so we were able to set up a workshop and invite advocates to come and fill out the form. And so we had a couple of goals for the workshop. We wanted them to fill out the original form. We wanted them to fill out 6 new iterations that we at Onyx Valley Studios created that was based on the research that we did up to that point. And we wanted to figure out the title, because language access grievance form, we realized, is not the best title. So we wanted to address that. And so we started with a borrowed worlds exercise. And really that's just asking questions like, by 2020, what would you want to see changed in Philadelphia in your community? Or what would the municipal services building look like if it was managed by IKEA? The point isn't to, really get to an answer. It's really just to get the creative juices flowing and move from kind of what is to what could be. And so that's what you see here. These are some of their answers. And next we laid out the original form, as well as the 6 different forms iterations that we created. And here are some advocates to my left in this picture. It was awesome for me to just be there with them as they filled out the form in real time. And I think that's super valuable for me to be able to observe them. Just even observing, you could see where different areas they might stop, have questions, look confused. And then being there to ask them questions was also good, because you could ask them, walk me through your thought process here. And so my approach really is to make sure and emphasize that there's not a right or wrong answer. And that's why I keep it open-ended and try to emphasize that. It's really just getting to know what is their thought process, what are the challenges, what are things that are working well, and most importantly, why. So that was really helpful. And I mentioned earlier, trying to figure out the title, we did a card sorting activity. I remember even before this workshop, me and my Onyx Valley studio colleagues, we were in WeWork having a debate for about 3 hours on potential titles. It was interesting, but I mean, they were all valid in different ways. So with this experience, we were able to create 16 different potential titles, and then have advocates categorize titles by those that made sense, those that definitely didn't, and those that were maybes. And then since they were there with us, we were able to ask them a little bit more about why certain things made sense and why certain things didn't. So that was really helpful exercise as well. From just level feedback, you know, some people said, what constitutes language grievance, which we already knew the title was an issue. They wanted more graphics, less text. They really wanted an ability to, for the form to show that you can fill out, anyone can fill out the form. It's just not somebody who's struggling with English, which was really important. And then you can see here are some of the redesign iterations that we created that we also had them fill out. And, you know, they wrote on it, gave their thoughts and insights. And so that was really helpful for us. They really wanted to emphasize, you know, some of what happens like after you submit the form, like what happens, because the original form, it doesn't tell you. So as far as you know, you submit the form and then it just goes off in the universe. And there's less accountability, which could be frustrating as someone who filled out the form. So that was something that advocates wanted to address, who could fill out the form. So those are just some top level things. Once again, this is the original form, the language access grievance form. This is the original form. A few things that were issues was on the third column on the right here by my mouse. What we learned is that through research is that field, a lot of times people who did submit the form, they sometimes would just skip filling out their contact information and they would only fill in like the grievance area. And that was the area for them to tell their story. And so sometimes some people just filled out that block. So here, because knowing that most people want a little more space to do that. If the first page, there's two places that you could file a grievance. You could do it with the Office of Immigrant Affairs, and then you could do a legal complaint with the Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations, which is confusing if you're already, it's confusing for native English speakers to know which one to submit to, let alone someone who's struggling with English. So adding some clarity, and those are just some top level issues with the original form. So I'll show you a prototype that we did that was based off of the research that was done. And so just at a top level view, we wanted cohesive city branding, and that came out of stakeholder interviews where that was a concern and a point of interest for the city. So that was something that we looked at and that came out of the research. This form reads at a 5th grade average reading level compared to the old form, which in some places was at a graduate level. And so we thought it was really important to just simplify the tone, especially considering some people who are filling out the form are struggling with English. And even if you're not, just the likelihood that your likelihood is more that you'll fill out the form if it's just not, if it's just easier to do so. So there's an app called Hemingway, and you can submit copy there, and it'll spit out what grade level reading that copy is. So that's what we used. We dropped the form length down 1, so now it's from 3 pages to 2. And there's an instructional help heading at each step. So 1, 2, 3, and it kind of gives more direction as you're filling out the form. And this was designed using Google Docs, and we did that because it came out again out of the research that due to budgetary constraints, it was best if we had a form that anyone can edit. You know, if things change, you can edit it on the fly at no cost. So that was a point of interest. I'll just go quickly through some other highlights from the new form that we added. We really wanted to emphasize that those who fill out the form are legally protected. And so that was a big issue. Some people just wouldn't fill out the form because if they were undocumented citizens, they were worried that if they submitted the form, that could cause an issue for them personally. So we wanted to emphasize that they could do that, you know, without harm. We let them know that there's help for them, that an interpreter at Philly 311 could translate and help them fill out the form. So that was really important as well. Contact information, we have a note for who's filling out the form. Is it someone who's struggling with English, or is it an advocate or someone else, like a family member? And just adding a little more context. And then to the left, we also emphasize that the contact information isn't required. So we give people the out that they don't have to do it, but we encourage it just because it's more helpful to contact them back. And another thing that came out of the research was the Office of Immigrant Affairs. They needed a way to kind of sort through a bunch of these submissions. So we added the for office use up top. And do you still need these services? Yes or no? Sometimes people made a complaint and it was hard to tell, do they still need those services? Did they not get them, but they still need them? Or did they not get them and they just wanted to make a complaint? And so we added that as well. And then, is it medical or police related? If they check yes, that's a flag to anyone who receives the form that this should be prioritized in the response. And of course, we changed the title. Language access grievance form went to language help services form. Help tested at a below grade level reading level, while the word grievance actually tested at postgraduate. And also, grievance form is limited to what the form's capabilities are, while help services also shows a little bit more. It's not just a grievance form, you can also seek services as well. So it's a little more inclusive of what the form actually intends to do. And so we really wanted to also make sure we tested it. And so we tested it again. This is PHL Gov Labs. And so this was a forum where different city departments, not just the Office of Immigrant Affairs, but there were several other city departments who were redesigning forms of the Office of Immigrant Affairs, and our forum was included. And so this was a chance, again, for advocates, and it was open to the public at large, just concerned citizens who were willing to test out the form. And so we had, in our group, grows and glows exercise. So we had people for 20 minutes fill out the form, and where it was easy to understand, they marked it with a green dot. Where it was confusing, they marked red. And then as a group, we kind of did a share out at the end, but it was really helpful just to once again test. And the city said that they would take that feedback into consideration.
Hey, Reggie, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We're a few minutes past time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do we have, how much more do you think we might need to wrap up the presentation?
You can do it in 30 seconds. Is that
perfect?
Okay.
Great.
And so outcomes and metrics. So I actually talked to Orlando earlier this week to give a quick update about the form. He said they are using the form, it's in use, but due to COVID, which has changed, everything for everyone, they're actually now trying to direct people from not picking up the form physically and direct them online. And then you can see on the right, here are some metrics to just analyze success to figure out, is this form working? Did the changes actually work? And here's a few things that we provided that could help. I just want to give a quick thanks to, again, this was not just me, this was the team at Onyx Valley Studios, and we worked together. So thank you all, and thank you, Kyrie, who's the founder of Onyx Valley, for that. And I want to thank PhillyCHI for this opportunity. And like I said, I'm also looking for full-time work. If anyone's interested, just let me know. Thanks.
All right, amazing job, Reggie. I see one question in the Q&A. Another one just popped up. We're 2 minutes from ending. Can I ask you to answer those questions in the Q&A channel, since we're limited and we have to do the raffle?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. That was
You're
amazing work. You're
Sure.
getting great criticism in the channel. Check it out. Amazing job.
Thank you.
Okay, those are all of our panelists tonight. We've had really amazing presentations, really amazing discussions, great conversation in the Q&A and chat. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We have one Last thing we have to do, which is announce our raffle winner. So I'm going to hand it off to Chung. Thank you again to all of our presenters. Amazing job tonight. Thank you for joining us.
All right. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Reggie. It's really thoughtful process. Thank you for walk us through this project. So for the raffle, we have 3 winners. Christine gonna follow up with you by email and send you the physical books. So no matter where you are in the world, we're gonna send it. Just a head up, it's gonna may take a little bit longer than usual due to COVID-19. But so for the first winner, the book is Living in Information. The winner is Julie Lazarus. Can I see you? I'm trying to go through this. Does anyone see Julie in the list?
See Julie in the list.
Yes, I see you. Okay. The second winner for a book called Engage, Ashley Bernard. So hi, Ashley, you win a book. We're gonna contact you by email. Let me see, let's make sure that you are in the list. Okay, I see you, Ashley. Awesome. And the third winner is for the book called Practical Empathy. This is someone that I know really well, Alex Voorhey. Hi, Alex. I see you there. Congratulations, man. Okay, you're gonna get the book by mail. All right. Thank you, everyone, for this tonight again. Thank you for joining. We appreciate your time. Jené, Tony, and Reggie, kudos to you all. Again, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay connected. Okay, bye. Bye for now.
So much, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Great talks.